the Colorado Buffaloes may have a major case for being Big 12 title contenders.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs, and today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And thank you for making me your first listen of the day. Joining me today, Scott Procter, the one, the only, the legend, the man, the myth as well. Scott, we got some exciting things to talk about on this fine Monday because Colorado went into Arizona, which I had some network connectivity issues on Friday. Apparently, wind can just knock out a whole town's network, as it does sometimes. So I was confident, though, on Thursday, which was the most recent episode I did before the game, and I was like, you know what? I think they win by 10 or more. I didn't want to go crazy with 20 or whatever, but maybe I should have gone crazy because they completely handled this Arizona team to the point where I looked at their schedule while I was doing my live reaction to the game, which ended up being posted on Sunday. I went through the rest of their schedule, and I was like, I think Colorado has a legitimate path to the Big 12 title, right? They have their favorite against Cincinnati. Me and you talked about this off air. Texas Tech, to me, looks like their biggest challenge left on the schedule. And then they have a depleted Utah team, a Kansas team that may be one of the worst stories in college football. They went from like really good last year to like exciting, and everyone's like, they're going to win the Big 12. And now it's like, is Jalen Daniels like actually a good player? Like, what is going on in Lawrence, Kansas, right? They just beat Houston in a much needed win. And Jalen Daniels, I think, played his first game since, his first time in a while that was only marked his second game all season without a turnover, or at least without an interception. So he's had the turnover bug. And then they finish off the year with a Oklahoma State team that is not what they thought, or is not what they were, I guess, projected to be. So, Scott, where do you see Colorado sort of landing in this Big 12 title contention race? Because I would say they're right at the top of it, or at least in the second tier.
Yeah, man, they're right in the thick of things, right? I mean, I think I said last week, when I was on your show, when I was on this lovely program, that, based on what I saw against Kansas State the week before, which is who I believe is the best team in the Big 12 at this point. Okay. I know BYU was undefeated. I know BYU actually smoked Kansas State earlier this season. But for my money at this point in the season, I think Kansas State's the best team in the Big 12. And if you want to see BYU, that's perfectly fine. They have a more than an airtight case. So, again, based on what I saw out of Colorado in that game against Kansas State, coming off what they did on the road, destroying UCF the week before, I said at that point that I could see Kansas State and Colorado having a rematch, meeting back up in the Big 12 title game December 7th. That's just very much on the table to me. Obviously, BYU is going to have a say, right? They got to lose first, for either of those teams, for any other team really, to feel comfortable that they have a good chance of making the title game. You're right. They may not lose. And if you look at their schedule as well, they have a pretty sweet setup down the rest of the way to go as well. But speaking on Colorado, I agree, man. This has opened up perfectly for them. This season has kind of gone as well as one would have expected it, especially if you throw in the caveat that Travis Hunter has missed the second half of each of the last two games, right? And that's kind of where I think the biggest growth of this team is shown, is that it has real depth this time around as opposed to last year. Like, this is a real complete team this time around. And obviously we can go in a few different directions, but LeJontay Wester continues to impress me, continues to prove why I thought, before the season, or why I said before the season, he was the player I was most looking forward to watching in 2024. He had a touchdown in 5 straight games. 5 straight games before, last week's win over Arizona. 2 of those games were multi-touchdown games. One of those games was the literal Hail Mary to survive against Baylor. So LeJontay's been making big plays pretty much every single week since week 1. And obviously last week he didn't get in the end zone against Arizona, but he had arguably his best game as above. 8 catches, a season high. He had 127 yards. He almost scored again on the opening drive. His longest catch of the season was 46-yarder from Shador. Got tackled at the 5-yard line. Isaiah Augusta punches it in a couple plays later. But he has just been heaven sent. And again, especially when you consider that Travis Hunter, arguably the best receiver in college football, has, again, missed the second half of each of the last 2 games. And this offense really hasn't missed a beat, without him, which is just something that you couldn't really say last year when obviously Travis Hunter was missing for a few of those games. So offensively, Shedeur is continuing to play like a Heisman Trophy candidate, the best quarterback in college football. He has weapons. He's been better protected. Jordan Seaton has also been in heaven sent, man. I mean, once again, Colorado's highest graded offensive lineman for their win over Arizona. He has been exactly what this program needed as a true freshman, and that can't be understated as well. And then defensively, this defense just continues to be dominant in the second half of games. Pitched another shutout in the second half against Arizona on Saturday. There's 7 sacks, I believe, were the most they've had since I don't even know how long. 7 sacks were the most Colorado has had in a game since 2010. That's 14 years.
That was 11.
14 years. Exactly, bro. Samuel Kalola had 2 of them. Keaton Wade got in on the action, the Kentucky transfer in his first action. So
he was one of my stars of the game. Keaton Wade was like a nice revelation because honestly, you mentioned it. Samuel Kunalola, I think he's getting going now, right? But to start the season, him, BJ Green, even Deion Hayes, it was like, okay, where's this pass rush, right? Even Coach Prime, there's videos of him going, you guys dominate one-on-ones during practice, but as soon as we get to group things, where is all of this energy, right? And Keaton Wade comes in, like you said, for I think really the first time that we've seen him all year, and just
I believe that those are his first defensive snaps of the season. I think he's played some special teams, but I think those are his first defensive snaps of the entire season. He made the most of them. Shout out to him.
Yeah. Two sacks right away gets him on the board. Now Colorado's leading the Big 12 in sacks, which is a true revelation for a defense last year that, I mean, they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. They got torn apart on crossing routes all day, every day. And now it's like, okay, Colton Hood comes in, replaces Travis Hunter. Again, another pick. And, dude, he's going to get a pick 6. I promise you by the end of the year, he's going to get one. He comes so close. I think
too electric with the ball in his hand. Man.
He's just so electric. And I just feel like he's so fast. He like stumbles upon his own speed sometimes. I don't know like how to explain it, but yeah, I thought there was a lot to be excited about in this past game. Just in general, right? The defense, like you said, pitched a shutout. LeJonte Wester stepped up, but you also brought up a good point about Will Sheppard. I don't know if you have the stats pulled up in front of you, but ever since the drop against Baylor, he had been popping off, and I think he's really turned.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, since we all saw the drop right in the Baylor game, which honestly was a blessing in disguise, right? Because LeJonte Wester actually catches the Hail Mary on the next play in the 4th overtime, and obviously Colorado escapes over Baylor. But since that Baylor game with the drop for Will Sheppard, the following week he went 4 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown against UCF. And in that UCF game, he had one of the most spectacular touchdown catches you'll see all season. Following week, he follows that up with 5 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown against K-State. Last week, again, a touchdown for the 3rd straight game, 4 catches and 54 yards against Arizona. So Will Sheppard, like you just kind of mentioned about Samuel Kalola and a few of these guys, it might have been a slow start to the season for them individually, but now they're starting to heat up, and we're starting to see that these guys are real ball players. Again, Will Sheppard you don't rack up over 2,000 career receiving yards in the SEC by accident. Right. You know what I'm saying? And that's exactly
it doesn't just happen.
Will Sheppard, you don't just stumble into that. That doesn't happen by happenstance. You got to be a really good ball player. And obviously, Will Sheppard, had a bit of slow start to the season, but he's picked it up right now. He is a legitimate weapon, particularly in the red zone, particularly on those fade balls, those jump balls that Shedeur and him just have a connection on. So he's a weapon. And again, it's coming at a time where Travis Hunter is not 100% per se, right? And again, last year that would be a death sentence. But with this team, with more depth, with much more talent, with much better coaching, this is a real, legitimate, complete team that is a actual, like you mentioned, contender in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, I think they have Big 12 contender written all over them. Realistically, Kansas State and Iowa State are going to duke it out at the end of the season. So that's assuming if Iowa State loses, right, then they're still in the mix. But if Iowa State beats Kansas State, that kind of eliminates them. So there's lots at stake all Colorado has to do, which easier said than done, is win out. In terms of Will Shepherd, though, I do have one complaint about his awareness, right? On-campus parking. Clearly, it's his biggest weakness. He returned to Boulder with a boot on his car. So clearly, that's the only place he's struggling right now. So
honestly, though, to defend him, that's not a Will Shepherd thing. That's a CU Boulder thing. Like that is a common occurrence even amongst the athletes.
I've seen numerous complaints about them. So we'll just have to keep you guys updated on Will Shepherd's adventures with the parking department of Colorado. But very big win for Colorado. I think that's another statement win. Realistically, we've seen them win close ones. We've seen them kind of not play their best game and win. But that may have been outside of the Colorado State game and maybe even more complete. I think that's their most complete game of the season thus far, where it's just like pure domination from start to finish. They kind of eradicated their demons that they've had in years past or in games past. So very strong showing from Colorado. And we're just going to talk about what's next with these Cincinnati Bearcats, because they're a frisky matchup this upcoming weekend, and Colorado doesn't want to get trapped looking ahead. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by ZBiotics. ZBiotics is a pre-alcoholic probiotic drink. It is the world's first, and it's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So if you guys are out there tailgating and you know that it's going to get a little figgity, a little fun, make sure to drink some prebiotics. So let me tell you exactly how it works. So you drink your pre-alcohol first. For your best results, make sure that pre-alcohol is the first drink of the night. Then you have to drink responsibly. So pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. And then you can enjoy the next day, that Sunday or that Monday, wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund you your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use code Locked On College at checkout for 15% off. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in every single day, making us your first listen. Scott, let's talk about what is going on right now with these Colorado Buffaloes, right? They're on a bit of a streak, and I think one of the other more surprising teams in the Big 12 right now is standing in their way from obviously getting to the bowl eligibility threshold. Colorado already 5-2, second time of the past decade, I believe, is their best start. But Cincinnati's not a team to look upon lightly, right? They were a team last year, bottom of the barrel. I think they were kind of like the one guaranteed win in the Big 12, and now that's not the case, right? They beat UCF on the road. Then they beat an Arizona State team, albeit without Jeff Sims. Still a frisky Arizona State team. Brendan Sorsby is doing his thing. And then they have a strong rushing attack led by Corey Kiner, who's got 600 yards rushing on the year. And then they also have a guy by the name of Evan Pryor. They have guys everywhere. And so let's talk about this Cincinnati game, excuse me. No disrespect to Cincinnati, of course. Former playoff team Cincinnati, by the way, Scott, back in the day. What are you seeing in this game, right? How do you feel they match up? What do you think Colorado needs to do to win?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the great matchup for Colorado, right? Cincinnati has been much improved team, much better than I thought they would be this season. I thought they were a surefire bottom 4 team in the conference preseason, but that's obviously not the case, right? They have a couple good wins, but I struggle to find, what's their best win though, right? I look at their schedule and I kind of think that their 5-2 record is more of a product of a sweet schedule than it is a pretty good football team, right? I mean, they opened the season with a win over Towson. They beat Miami of Ohio by 11 points. They bust up Houston 34-0, which everybody busted up Houston, right? And then they beat UCF on the road by 6 in a 19-13 game.
With backup quarterbacks that play.
And then they beat Jeff Sims, last week over Arizona State, which doesn't necessarily impress me, to say the least.
He's not moving the needle for you?
Not exactly. I watched him at Nebraska last year, and what I've seen out of him this year doesn't look too much different in that category. But shout out to Jeff Sims, though, man. But nonetheless,
getting that degree, playing some
this
football.
Cincinnati team doesn't really scare me, and this looks like another spot where Colorado can put together a dominant win, and potentially, in my opinion, if they play the right way, they'll be ranked in the top 25 next week. And I look at Brennan Sorsby, who the former Indiana quarterback, I believe, right? He's been playing a pretty solid season. He's talented, but I look at the fact that he's thrown at least one interception in each of his last 3 games. He threw 2 picks against UCF. He's been sacked in every game, at least once every game this year since the season opener. So I say that because there are going to be opportunities for this Colorado defense to create big plays, whether that be intercepting Brennan Sorsby, whether that be sacking him, getting a strip sack, causing a fumble, one of those type of things. And obviously that's something that this Colorado defense has developed a penchant for here over the last few weeks, creating turnovers, turning them into big plays, right? Big returns. We just talked about Colton Hood a little bit. And obviously there are just going to be opportunities, I think, to turn over Brennan Sorsby in the Cincinnati offense. Like we've said for a lot of the games this year, if Colorado can just stop the run, because Corey Kiner is a talented back, right? If they can just stop the run, force Brennan Sorsby to make plays with his arm, I think the Bucs will roll with another double-digit victory at minimum. Because I think this offense, you got to be a specific type of really good defense to slow down Shedeur Sanders in this passing attack, right? We've only seen a couple teams do it, right? Maybe only one. Maybe it's just Nebraska when we're talking about really stifling this Colorado offense so far here this season. So I don't think Cincinnati is one of those defenses. I think Shedeur and this offense will cruise to 31-plus points, and I don't think Cincinnati is capable of getting up to that range against this Colorado defense. So for all those reasons, I like Colorado in a big spot again. Not to mention they're at home. Not to mention it's a blackout, right? And again, they win today. This weekend, they'll be bowl eligible already before even Halloween, which is impressive for a team that's
first time since the COVID.
Under. Yeah, impressive for a team who's over under for wins for the season was set at 5.5, and they'll be at 6 wins potentially before Halloween. That's impressive stuff.
Spooky stuff, some might say. Realistically, the only way Cincinnati wins, right, is if Brennan Sorsby really gets it going. And
pretty much.
He did that one time against Texas Tech, which they lost, so it's hard to really say this, but he threw 426 yards and 4 touchdowns. So realistically,
Texas Tech's defense is Swiss cheese.
Yeah, they are Swiss cheese. That's a good point. Colorado's defense, not Swiss cheese. So the secondary just needs to continue doing what they're doing, make big plays, and I think that this Colorado team will be A-okay. And me and Scott are going to give you guys our predictions when we come back. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Gametime, not FanDuel. Had the wrong little ad up there. FanDuel, it's the perfect place to get all your deals because they have everything you need. They have all-in prices, which allows you to view the price up front. So there's no surprise checkout fees where all of a sudden it's about $200 more than you expected. They also have seat views, which allows you to get a panoramic view from your seat on the app before you buy, and their lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Okay, Scott, let's dive into this. It's prediction time, and I think we've been doing pretty solid, right? I think we've each missed one. I missed 2, I believe, because I predicted them to beat Nebraska and then lose to UCF. But other than that, those are my only misses. I believe you only have 1 miss on the year, if I'm not mistaken.
The Nebraska game,
not too shabby. So not too shabby for 2 guys who are trying to predict the future every single week. Let's see if we can do it again. I'll give you, as I do every week, I'll give you the environment, whatever. So we're getting an 8:15 local time kickoff, really late. Don't love that. It's going to be 56 degrees in Boulder, Colorado. ESPN's going to be there. Apparently, according to Vivid Seats, there's tickets as low as $131. Gametime probably has them beat, so go check out Gametime, of course. And ESPN gives Colorado a 68.2% chance of winning, and they're also favored by 4.5 points. Scott, I think this is another double-digit win for Colorado, if I'm being quite honest. You kind of hit on it. Cincinnati has beaten up on teams that haven't really impressed, right? They beat up on Houston, bottom of the barrel. Texas Tech defense, I mean, they struggled and they lost this game. Texas Tech's defense is bad, and Houston wasn't able to sort of contain their offense well enough. And I think, and this isn't me saying Texas Tech offense is like Colorado's, but I would say they're the most comparable in terms of what they like to do and how they play. Yeah. They beat UCF, who at the time was starting a fella by the name of Ja'Cory Brown. Well, EJ Colson got the start and went one of 4, -6 yards. Ja'Cory Brown comes in, throws for 1 touchdown, and UCF still has quarterback issues. So nothing is figured out there. And then they beat Jeff Sims, who he's getting his degree, you know. I mean, he's got a lot of football under his belt. He's getting that degree. So I don't think Cincinnati has played a team as good as Colorado. And so I think I'm calling for like a 35 to, I'll go 17 win here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think you can probably glean from the last segment which way I'm leaning in this one. But I got Cincinnati a very similar score. I got a very similar score. I think Colorado doubles up Cincinnati 34-17. I think Colorado is very more than capable of scoring at least a touchdown a quarter. I think Motto, who was just named the Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week for his performance against Arizona, not just a couple more field goals. And I think, again, this defense maybe gives up a touchdown early or so, but I think they'll continue their second half dominance. And this is another pretty comfortable double-digit win for the Buffs. Again, 34-17. And this time next week, CU will be inside the top 25 for the first time in at least a year, right? It was probably around this time last year, probably even before that, probably more than a year. Yeah.
They were ranked, I think, heading into the USC game or somewhere around. Excuse me. I know the Oregon game unranked them. I know that for sure. But yeah, Colorado has a prime opportunity to really sneak into the rankings. And also, not that people really view Cincinnati as a Big 12 contender, but they are technically 1 spot ahead of Colorado in the Big 12 standings in the Big 12 standings at the moment. So this would bump Colorado up 1 more spot, which is a big deal when things are all said and done, because if you contend for your conference, you're contending for the playoff, and Colorado has a playoff aspiration. So, Scott, we both see them winning. We both think that is going to be a very happy weekend in Boulder. I appreciate you for hopping on, and I hope you have a very happy week. Tell the people where they can find you, because I know you got some good stuff cooking up.
Absolutely, man. Go follow me on Twitter, now known as X, at this handle right here below, Scott Procter _. And stay tuned to that account tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, for a special announcement. You don't want to miss it. Appreciate you having me on as always, though, Kevin.
Little special announcement tease from Scott Procter. We'd love to see it. We'll throw in a little special announcement too. We hit 6,000 subscribers on Locked On Buffs, so I am very grateful and thankful for all the people who tune in, watch, listen, whatever it may be. We're thankful for guys like Scott who come on the show and provide their great insight. It's been fun. It's been real, and we will see you guys tomorrow.